This comment says, "It's so nice to hear someone explain that dogs are not a monolith and that there are many reasons for behavior." And they go on to talk about how some trainers will give an absolute reason for a behavior and an absolute intervention that should take place. And honestly, that should be a big red flag. We should run far away from anyone purporting to be a pet professional who is offering behavior advice without getting so much information about the dog. What may be appropriate for one dog may be disastrous for another dog. And the idea of, training the dog in front of you or doing what works for the individual often gets completely misunderstood as a defense for using punishment or suppression. But that's not what I'm talking about, and that's not what those phrases are supposed to mean. There are so many nuances to behavior. Behavior is data. Behavior is a symptom, and it's communication from a species other than our own. And humans aren't even actually very good at correctly interpreting the behavior of their own species. And so there's a lot of room to get it wrong. When we're looking at a behavior concern, which again is really just a symptom of something underlying, it's vital that we get to that underlying piece. We need to know the function of the behavior. We need to know the emotional valence of the behavior. We need to know the level of stress or arousal at which the behavior is happening. We need to know the context of the behavior. And we need to consider all of these different variables that may be influencing the behavior, including unsatiated needs, which often gets talked about a lot of times as boredom, but it's so much more broad than that. We're talking about sleep hygiene. We're talking about physical health concerns. We need to know what the dog finds supportive, what the dog finds aversive. We need to know about the dog's developmental stages and their learning history. There's data to be mined in previous interventions that have been used and the impact those interventions had on the behavior, and not just on the behavior that we're talking about as a problem, but also all of the surrounding behaviors, the dog's quality of sleep, their willingness to engage socially, their play behaviors, their appetite. And so when we see someone on the internet taking the information that they can glean from a comment or even a series of comments and offering behavior advice, that is a red flag. When people ask me about specific behaviors or specific sets of behavior concerns on the internet, I often use them as an opportunity to talk about some of the concepts surrounding them. But I'm never going to suggest specific behavior interventions for a dog that I don't have a ton of information on, because it can be dangerous. And in my attempt to help the dog and the human, I may actually make things much worse for them. And so when we see folks giving specific behavior advice, saying, "Oh, you're seeing this with your dog, this is how we handle that. There's one way to handle it, and I've decided that's definitely what's going on with your dog." Or sometimes people will even say, "This is what's going on with you," like in the vein of you're not being a strong enough leader, and that's why you are seeing intra-household aggression, nonsense like that. That's actually a sign of how much the person doesn't know. They don't know what they don't know, and that's okay. We don't know what we don't know. But in a totally unregulated industry, what this can lead to is people taking guidance from sources that are not equipped to offer that guidance.